Okay, let's take a look at the box office from this past weekend. Total domestic box office was $64 million, so about a 15% drop, so not drastic by any means. Again, we're still looking like this lull period before things really start to ramp up in like May. In terms of films opening, so the highest grossing movie this weekend that's new is Abigail, but only coming in at number 2. It wasn't able to unseat Civil War, which I'll talk about in a little bit, but it brought in about 10 million, and unless my projections are wrong, and I say my projections, but these are, projections that I find. I use the website Box Office Pro, but recently they've stopped creating the charts that have their projections. That's usually where I source them from. So some of these projections are like old. So maybe this was not accurate projection, but the original numbers that I had seen was anywhere between 12 and 22 million. So if that was still the case, then this definitely underperformed, again, only bringing in about 10 million. Off of a $28 million budget. So this is definitely kind of disappointing. It has grossed a little bit extra worldwide, but only bringing its worldwide total to about 15 million. So, this is a little disappointing for, who made this? Universal, right? This is a little disappointing for Universal, but, I think there might be some good word of mouth. Like, I heard it's like a very kind of fun movie. I heard it's like not amazing, but it's kind of just like a fun horror comedy. That might give it, some good word of mouth and helps kind of build this box office total over time. But again, there's just going to be so many things coming out that I'm wondering why this didn't come out in like September or October, right? The kind of like the prime horror film time. Also coming in at number 4 is The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, the Guy Ritchie, kind of fun World War II, exactly what you would expect from the premise of a Guy Ritchie movie about secret agents, or maybe they're not secret agents, but in World War II. It brought in about 9 million for the weekend, which fell into the projections, which put it around 6 to 10 million. But it was off of a $60 million budget. So again, I would categorize this as a big flop. But again, it all depends on how it holds, right? Going week to week. But I have not heard great things about it, right? So I just don't see this movie having really any legs. But again, only time will tell. And then another movie opening this week, A Spy X Family Code White. I guess it's like an anime film based off of like a manga, I think. Maybe, I'm not really sure. It brought in about 4.9 million for the weekend, bringing its total domestic run to about 51 million. So this is on most of its box office, elsewhere outside of the United States. In terms of things continuing this weekend, like I had mentioned, Civil War held its first place spot in its second frame. Its total this weekend is coming in at $11 million. Pretty big drop, though, at 56%, which is not the worst that it could have been, but it definitely is a little disappointing. If it's anything more than 50%, that's when I am a little, I would be a little concerned, right? But this brings its total domestic box office take to 45 million and its worldwide total to 49. So clearly having most of its box office be accounted for by American markets, which makes sense since it's like a very American film. And this is all off of a $50 million budget. Again, we talked about this before. This is like A24's most expensive film, but it also had its biggest opening ever last weekend. So, I wonder if, again, I said I'd be interested to see the legs on this. This 56% drop is a little concerning. But again, I think it has the opportunity to make its money back in the weeks ahead. A couple other things I want to note here. So we got 3 movies that have gone past their, are in there. I like to kind of take note of the films that have been in the top 10 for, 5 weeks or more, in five frames or more. So coming in at 6, 7, and 8, we have a few of those. So at number 6, we have Kung Fu Panda, bringing in just a small, again, all of these are now just bringing in little bits, but it's all about like how long can they just keep going and sustaining. So Kung Fu Panda bringing in 4.6 million, dropping from 4th to 6th in its 7th frame, so almost 2 months now at this point. And only a 17% drop from the last weekend. Its total domestic box office is now at 180 million and 480 million worldwide, just off of an $85 million budget. So this has been very successful for DreamWorks. Number 7, we have the Ghostbusters Legacy sequel, both a sequel to the 80s movies, but also a sequel to the last Ghostbuster film that came out like 2 or 3 years ago, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire at 4.4 million, dropping from 3rd to 7th in its 5th frame. So really clonked down there out of the top 5. But only a 24% drop. So, slow and steady. It wins the race. Things like Wonka, which is, I think I was looking at, just for fun, I was looking at the highest grossing movies of 2024. And a decent amount of them are still like movies that were released in 2023, and Wonka was one of them. And Wonka was released like in November, and it had such a long run in the top 10. So again, it really is slow and steady wins the race. The huge openings make a lot of news, and then the huge drops also make a lot of news, but for bad reasons. But at the end of the day, you want it to make a lot of money. So whether it makes, I would rather have something that's slow and steady if I was a producer, but I'm not. So that's why I do this show. And so let's see, where was I? So this brings Ghostbusters Frozen Empire's total domestic box office to 103 million domestic and 176 million worldwide. And this is only off of a $100 million budget. So it's definitely getting there. Again, like the rule of thumb is you want to make double your budget to just break even, because the budget does not include things like marketing and advertising. So, this is not a flop by any means, but it definitely, would be good to see it get to 200 million worldwide to kind of put to rest any concerns about its box office take. And the number 8, I'm so sad to see it drop so low now. So Doom Part 2 only bringing about 2.9 million. It just this weekend, and I think throughout this week, it's they're doing another run, like I think just for a week, of their like IMAX run. So I went to go see it again with my fiance Viviana, who had yet to see it. We actually went to go see it yesterday. It was like perfect condition. We went to the IMAX. We started in IMAX 70 millimeter at AMC Lincoln Square. And we sat like in the back row, so we had like the perfect view for it. She loved it. I already, I've talked about how much I like it. I thought that would maybe give it a little bit of a better box office return this weekend, but I guess not. Dropping from 5th to 8th place. But in its 8th frame, though. So it's been in the top 10 for a long time. And this is only a 33% drop. So, again, this is like another Chalamet film that can maybe have those legs. And as of right now, Doom Part 2 is the highest grossing movie of the year, even including things that came out in 2023. And this brings its domestic total to 277 million and 696 million worldwide. I think I saw some reports saying that it's crossed the 700 million milestone, so maybe my numbers here are a little bit out of date, but nevertheless, it's either has crossed or will soon cross the $700 million mark, which again is just could not, I say this like every week, could not have happened to a better film, especially considering it was only made for $190 million. When I say only $190 million, but that rate of return is pretty good. It is definitely doubled its budget, right, worldwide. Let me see here. I don't think there's anything else. The only other thing I want to say is I'm just disappointed The First Omen has really flopped the way it has. I went to go see it. You can find my review online at cinemacusa.substack.com. I thought it was really great, but I'm a little biased as like someone who's like I'm a Catholic, so the film, definitely appealed to my horror sensibilities, but I guess it just didn't really make enough of a splash. So it's at number 10, only bringing about 1.7 million. It dropped from 7th to 10th place, and only its 3rd frame. And this week it had a 55% drop. It had a $30 million budget, and it's made about $45 million worldwide, so it hasn't quite doubled its budget, but it's not necessarily a flop either. But it's now at number 10, so unless something above it really tanks next weekend, which is possible, because I don't see this anime film that opened at number 5 staying in the top 10 next weekend, so it's possible, but I would not be surprised if The First Omen, unfortunately, is no longer with us. Rest in peace.